Our next speaker is a results-driven sales leader with a strong track record in SaaS, technology and services. Something there that everyone raised their hands to, right? It's like you're either in tech, you're in SaaS, or you're in services, right? So Nir Goldstein, you have such a great audience here, but Nir is currently an operating partner at Goldfield Partners, guiding early stage tech companies through their growth phases, whether it be opening up new capital or ensuring that the entrepreneurs inside those organizations have the space to grow and expand. One of the companies that Nir is consulting with currently is Ultra. Outside, right? They've got a booth. You're one of the sponsors. Yeah. Thank you very much. So Ultra is a company that really helps organizations understand their pain points and be able to pivot accordingly. But Nir will give it a much better introduction than me. He's going to focus on how to beat your sales targets through planning, hiring, setting quotas, and executing and exceeding your success metrics. You're going to learn from one of the best in the industry, on how to exceed your goals and how to keep your teams on track across the coming year. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Nir Goldstein to the stage. Now, Nir and I never got time to prep beforehand, right, Nir? So I don't know anything about this man, so I'm just going to give him a little octi as a thank you. In actual fact, I tell you what, we're going to give you some of Yossi's olives as well. You can take those with you and share them with the team. There you go. I don't know where you're going to put everything, but thanks.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for Alta for the opportunity, and really glad to be speaking in front of you all. And I'll soon enough introduce myself a little bit. I'm going to talk about a topic that I think that within sales forums or sales leaders, people are talking about it a bit less, which is basically strategic planning and long-term planning on the sales. So I'll introduce myself first. So in the past year, I've been an operating partner at a fund called Greenfield Partners. We're an early growth fund. We manage around $1 billion in assets. And we invest in companies in round B and C, mostly with a focus on helping them to really scale their go-to-market. Prior to that, I was really fortunate to lead Monday sales in EMEA and APAC for nearly 5 years. I've joined the company fairly early on around $50 million in ARR. 4.5 years after I left, Monday was around 800 million in ARR, and I had the privilege to grow my team from 7 reps to 200 reps. Half of them here in Tel Aviv, and the rest were across the EMEA and APAC. And I want to talk about a topic. I have the chance to really work and speak and meet a lot of the sales leaders in Israel, but also abroad, of many different companies in many different stages. And when we talk and when we work together, I see that they're focusing mostly on executing their deals, meeting their quotas for the upcoming quarter, which is for the current quarter, which is super important, right? That's what we are expected to do. But the more I thought about it, and along my journey in Monday and with other companies, I realized that focusing almost only on executing your current deals is really, working within a reality that was already set, because your pipeline is already there, your deals are already there, and your ability to really move the needle and influence is not really big. You're working already within boundaries that were already set, and you cannot really make a big difference to your team. The pain becomes even greater when you have a big team. So by the time I had 150, 200 reps, I had around somewhere between 800 to 1,000 deals a month within my group. I was able to be involved in maybe 5, 10, 20 a month. That was barely 5 to 10% in the best case out of my quota. In that case, I did not have, I barely had the ability to influence our results. If I weren't, sharp enough on the pipeline creation for the next quarter, once the quarter has already started, and assuming my sales cycle is more than a quarter, the result is already there. I can try and optimize it and fine-tune it, but I really missed the train on the ability to impact my current quarter. So what I want to talk today is how to really make an impact and how to take other actions, except for the important actions of executing your current pipeline and your deals, on how to make an impact, how to grow your team, and how to really move the needle. So I've created a high-level timeline here that starts with the long-term actions that you need to take, and then you derive out of those decisions and actions shorter and shorter timelines up until what I've mentioned. This is where most sales leaders are focused about, on the immediate term, on executing, on running your deals, on doing pipeline management, which is, again, super important. But all of those actions before are not less important, and you'll feel, as your organization grows, you feel that the weight shifts from the immediate terms into the long-term planning. This is almost only and solely where you'll be able to influence. So let's start with the long-term planning. What do we need to do and when, more or less? And I can say that, again, in my last period in Monday, this was probably 80% of what I've done. Because of the magnitude and because that large organization takes time to adapt, takes time to move, this is where I spend probably 60, 70% of my time. And this is the strategic planning. So refining your strategy. Things like if you want to go into new markets, if you want to open new offices, those things take time. You need to open up an entity, you need to look for an office, you need to run your salary benchmarks, you need to understand where you want to open the office, where you're going to hire people from, getting your first leaders, and so on. Throughout our period in Monday, we have expanded to new segments and new markets. We grew the sales team revenue from $1 million to $155 annually within 4 years. And in order to support such a hypergrowth, we had to constantly generate new growth engines. Those growth engines were mainly new markets, new segments, new roles within the group, new pricing strategy, and so on. When we've decided to reach out to a new segment or open up a new market, we first ran a research to identify where are our opportunities. But after taking the decision, we could not jump straight into scale. If I decided I want to open the Nordics market, it doesn't mean that the day after I can hire 8 or 10 sales reps. I would crash. So we used to run experiments. We've allocated 1 or 2 reps, defined our target, defined what data we want to track, and we start experimenting. Some experiments failed, and we rolled back our decision. We didn't move with it. And some succeeded, and then we had enough time, 3 to 4 quarters in advance, to plan and execute. But if you don't do it early enough, you won't be able to make it efficient. Budget. Planning out your resources, planning out your headcount, your capacity. How many people do you need to land? Again, sometimes some companies are doubling, some are tripling, some are growing 50% year over year. You need to land enough people. You need to make sure that you're hiring on time. You need to make sure that you'll have their hiring resources and so on, and the capacity would make it. And even if you hire people, how do you make sure they have enough pipeline? Do they have a sales development team that will support them? You're entering new markets. Did you localize your product? Did you localize your sales collateral? So much preparation that need to be done, but think of the impact of successfully opening a new market. Monday was opening 2, 3, 4 new markets every year. Every year, and this is how we've supported that growth. But we started planning around February, March, what areas are we going to attack next year? So strategy, budget, and capacity planning. And lastly, I've mentioned experiments, but you want to take those decisions as much as possible data-driven. You cannot scale before you have the supporting data to run with it. So a year in advance, you need to probably start imagine how your targets would look like next year. What do you want to achieve? And based on that, you start, planning out how your strategy is going to evolve towards that. After you've done that, there are many actions that in the midterm that you'll need to start doing in order to be able to execute that accordingly. You want to start planning your headcount. It takes time to hire sales reps. It takes even longer to get them ramped up. Some of them wouldn't make it, and you'll need to replace. You need to have enough recruiters. You need to have enough people within your team. So you want to plan that accordingly. You may want to change your team structure. You want to restructure the team. You want to split teams. You want to merge teams. You'll probably need new managers. Are you going to hire them from the outside? Are you going to promote from within? Promoting a manager or training someone to become a manager is not a trivial thing to do. You don't want to take your highest performing reps and crush them with when they're not prepared for management. This is a process that takes 6 months or so. You want to start implementing processes. Are you going to change the way you're distributing leads? Are you going to adopt your pricing plan? Or maybe your handover process, or how you're going to govern multinational accounts? Those things evolve as companies grow, but you cannot do it immediately. Changes like compensation plan changes and pricing takes time. And again, you want to experiment, you want to test as much as you can before you execute them. Events planning for the upcoming year to make sure that you have the right pipeline. And then short-term planning. From within the existing quarter, we are so much focused into running deals. We're chasing after our targets, which is super important. But another thing is being determined, which is our next quarter. If you're executing amazingly on your current quarter, but pipeline is not being stacked towards the next quarter, you're going to crash. You need to be on top of that. You need to make sure that you set your quotas and targets accordingly to get well enough. If with around half of my team were account managers who were responsible to grow new accounts. We used to redistribute their portfolio every year. Portfolio distribution, portfolio planning takes around 6 months to perform, to redistribute if you have a large enough book of business. These things need to be planned and need to be executed early on. And obviously the pipeline generation, as I mentioned before, if you don't have pipeline, your next quarter is, by the time you're entering into the next quarter, it's already done. That's it. You can only try to optimize 5% or 10% plus or minus. And obviously the immediate term. The immediate term is important. I'm not trying to suggest that it's not. Executing your current deals, handling your people constantly. You would have 5 to 10% of your people that would have personal issues, professional problems, and so on. You probably want to handle that You want to track the people's performance. You want to run the forecasting. This is what most of us are doing and focusing at. So there's probably less need to discuss that. But if you don't run all the planning in advance, you won't be able to grow your team, to grow your results appropriately next year. These things takes time and takes planning in advance. And maybe lastly, it's about data. In my previous company, before I joined Monday, we've opened up new markets. So we thought about growth, but we didn't do well enough research. We didn't run the data. So some territories, I ran some territories, and we've allocated 9 people. We barely had leads for 4. It was painful. We had another territory where they had 8 reps and probably leads and business that could support double than that. We lost around 60-70% of the sales force at that year. People were upset. We missed our target. So you don't want to just run and rush into decisions. You want to explore. You want to run experiments. You want to allocate people. You'll pay the price for it. Allocating some of your best reps into a new market that doesn't necessarily have solidified business, it costs you. But it's a small price to pay than hiring 6 people for that market and only then realize that it doesn't really have a supporting business for that. So you probably want to analyze your data, and if you don't have enough data, generate it by running experiments. And then you want to allocate the people and look at the quotas. Look at these deal sizes in those markets. Are they aligning with your assumptions? Look at the talent pool within these markets. Look at the lead volume and try and test out if you can generate new lead sources and pipeline channels in your target segments or target markets. If you do it early enough, you'll have enough time to take decisions and to make sure that you come well prepared for the upcoming year. But very few sales reps, sales leaders that I know, start to plan really deeply the following year early on. Like you probably want to start thinking about your next year, deeply thinking and planning it towards end of Q1, beginning of Q2. That's something that should occupy your mind, your brain capacity fairly significantly. Okay, I'm gonna give time back, maybe compensate on our slight delay. Thank you.
Wait there, Nir. You said questions, all right? Don't get off that easy. Has anyone got any questions for Nir before we let him go? Look, there's one down there. Nir, can you just repeat the question for the audience as well?
So the question was about strategy, right? So let's even broaden it to the dependencies on other departments within the organization, right? So some portions of the strategy are only within the sales group that I can take decisions. I don't need the approval or collaboration of other teams. I'll give examples in a second. And some would require collaboration. Me setting the strategy, I need the other organizations within the company to align with me. And I totally agree with that. So, for example, within the sales, in Monday, without even consulting with anyone around us, we've opened new segments. So when I started at Monday, we're in the sales. We only handled companies above 100 employees. We called it mid-market, and above that we had enterprise. And we've decided by definition to leave out the SMB segment, not to handle it. At some point, we realized that this could be aggregatively a very large market for us. and we started allocating 2 of our best reps on those companies. Once that succeeded, above what we've planned, we've opened up, and this is like a big portion of the sales group in Monday is today SMB. We did not need to consult with anyone. Some of the leads were already there. Some of the other leads we could have handled ourselves or generate our own pipeline through channel partners or through outbound. And that was part of the decisions that I did not need anyone's approval, maybe apart from Monday CRO, and even that, like we were independent to take our own decisions, to allocate our resources. What we weren't dependent is like I was responsible to deliver next year's target. So I could use my own resources, pay my own prices, as long as I can support this year and next year's targets. Some of the decisions did require aligning with product on pricing. For example, I wanted to reach out to new markets. I needed localization. I need a product to support Korean if I'm trying to penetrate the South Korean market. And this is another reason why you need to start planning in advance, especially in those areas where you need other department support. To hear their no early on, or if they are with you, to make sure that you're both taking the necessary steps in order to execute it.
Thanks, Nir. Nir, hands together, everyone, for a great presentation.